Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Soul Talk. This is Leora Mandel. I'll be joined with Rabbi David Aaron after the break. The holiday of Shavuot is upon us, and this is a time where we are celebrating the giving of the Torah. Now, this is very significant because this is the first time that God gave a mass revelation to an entire nation. It wasn't just one individual that was receiving the Torah. It was an entire nation whom God gave direction. We heard God's voice. We were there as a nation and witness from generation to generation. We share the experience. We remember the experience, and this was divinely given. This isn't just a set of stories and rules and instructions that are wise. They are wise, but it's not just that they're wise, that they're thought out, and that they are after many people and many generations living life, trial and error, that now here are some instructions and directions about how to live an elevated life, how to live a healthy, meaningful, purposeful life that we will now share from our experience. This is directions from God, instructions from God. The stories that are written are with lessons that are divinely given for us to learn from, that are applied to every single generation. And so this is so significant. It really has had a long-term impact, not just on the Jewish nation, but on the entire world. The instructions, the direction, the divine revelation that was given with the Torah. At the same time, we have a holiday, and holidays are times to celebrate. It's important, I always feel, to get a deeper level of understanding what a holiday is all about, because we can go through a holiday and just go through the motions of, eating good food and having time for prayer and some time for reflection. But if we don't prepare, we don't have some level of preparation before we come to the holiday, there's such significance and there's so much meaning and there's so much potential for growth that we miss out on because we did not properly prepare ourselves and give thought about what exactly is the celebration of the holiday. How am I supposed to be transformed from this holiday? And that is an opportunity that we have right now with Rabbi Aaron to get deeper insights into understanding what is the significance of the holiday of Shavuot, the significance of receiving the Torah, of living our lives according to the Torah, of celebrating the Torah, the significance of how the Torah has changed, history can continue to change our lives, and why we are celebrating the idea that we have laws, that we have rules, that we have it is guidance, but at the same time, we're celebrating living with these rules and laws. So how can we really make this more of a celebration? This is a time, like in any relationship, where you want to contemplate, where am I holding in this relationship? How can I make it more committed, more loving, and strengthen my commitments to that which is so essential and so important in my life? When we return, Soul Talk with Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel.
Israel is located in one of the most volatile areas in the world. Israel is an island of stability in a sea of war and unrest. In the midst of this turmoil, Israel stands out as a beacon of order and human progress. Each week we update you on what's happening in this, the Jewish state, a true light unto the nations. This is Jay Shapiro. Join me every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Biblical.
Be beautiful.
Wear your crown.
Wrapping is my crown.
Do what married Jewish women have been doing for thousands of years. Celebrate the art of head wrapping. I'm Andrea Grinberg from Rapunzel.com. We have beautiful scarves, stunning accessories, scarves for faith, scarves for healing, and scarves for fun. Rapunzel.com. That's Rapunzel with a W. Or click on our banner on the Israel News Talk Radio homepage.
Rapunzel.com. Beautiful scarves, stunning accessories paired with tutorials, support, and a vibrant community to give you everything you need to start and perfect your head covering journey.
Don't forget, join the Rapunzel community group on Facebook to see, learn, and share your beautiful wraps. That's Rapunzel with a W on Facebook.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
Get 10% off your purchase with promo code RADIO. Go now to Rapunzel.com.
and welcome to Soul Talk. This is Leora Mandel with Rabbi David Aaron. The holiday of Shavuot is approaching us, and this is the holiday where we are celebrating the giving of the Torah. God gave the Torah to the Jewish nation. And this is obviously a very significant holiday, as each holiday is, because my understanding is that what makes the Jewish nation unique, what makes the bond and connection between us and God unique, is that God gave us the Torah. Like any holiday, Rabbi, I always feel like, and you always deliver very well, there's always deeper elements to understanding the holiday. And there's some aspect of we can just enjoy some aspect of the holiday. It is a holiday. There's certain customs of the holiday, like eating cheesecake and eating Torah, having dairy. But at the same time, there's always deeper understandings of the holiday that I always find when you share with us some of those deeper aspects, there's so much more to gain from the holiday experience. So specifically, since this is the holiday of the giving of the Torah, I really would love to get some more insight into more details of what is this holiday really about and the significance of the Torah that God gave to us.
Excellent. Well, there's a cute joke. I think it's by Henny Youngman. He said, after reading much about the dangers of smoking and drinking liquor, it became clear to me that I must immediately stop reading. Okay. And, when a person opens up the Torah, there's a lot of rules and restrictions, and nobody likes that. Certainly at first glance, a lot of people would stop reading. So what is there to celebrate here? Why are we so happy? And there's a number of facets here that we can explore on a very simple level. Many years ago, a friend of mine's son was having his bar mitzvah, celebrating his 13th birthday, where he begins to embrace the responsibility of living a life of commandment. And the father asked me if I'd spend a little time with his son, preparing him for his bar mitzvah, and share with him some thoughts about the parsha, the portion of the Torah that he'd be reading. Well, so it's not so much my age group in terms of who I teach generally, like 13-year-olds is not so much my student body, but as a friend, so why not? So I'm sitting with the 13 boy, name is Jeffrey, and so I started sharing some ideas about the portion he'd be reading, and seemed to be getting it. So I went a little deeper. And he seemed to be getting it. I thought to myself, my gosh, I've been underestimating 13-year-olds. So I went even deeper. And he was like, really seems to be resonating with what I was saying. And so I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised and that was great. So at the end of maybe a 45-minute session of me downloading a bunch of deep ideas about the portion, I said to him, so Jeffrey, this week is this Shabbat is your bar mitzvah. Is there any other questions you'd like to address before the big day? He said, well, I really only have one. I said, yeah, what's that? He said, why do I have to keep all these commandments? I thought, oh boy. Here I went off on the deep end, sharing these deep ideas, and the most basic question he doesn't have an answer to, which is, why am I celebrating getting more responsibility and having to live a more restricted life with more rules? And so I said to him, Jeffrey, I said, do you like basketball? He said, I love basketball. I said, have you ever played basketball without the rules? I said, Rabbi, you can't play basketball without the rules, because without rules, you can't win, you can't lose. There's no fouls. You got to have rules. So I said, the same thing with life, Jeffrey. If there are no rules to life, you can't win, you can't lose, there's no game. And that's the first thing. I think a lot of people do not appreciate how having rules and structure in your life is a tremendous gift. A tremendous gift. It's interesting, actually. I recently heard a piece from Jordan Peterson. He's a professor at the University of Toronto, a best-selling author in psychology, therapist. And they were researching who are his, very popular, sought-after speaker, and who was the following him. And he had assumed that it was kind of like middle-aged women. And to their surprise, a very high percentage of his, so to speak, followers are young men. And he was very surprised at that. And he thought about it, and he concluded that because one of the things that he very much promotes is assuming more responsibility in your life. If you're not happy, it's because you don't have more responsibility in your life. Now, a lot of people that would think would be counterintuitive, like, I just want to have a good time, and if I have more responsibility in my life, then that seems to be more a burden than a blessing. But it's really a blessing, because when I have responsibility in my life, that means someone's counting on me. That means that I matter, that what I do is important. Now, that is what Torah says, that when Hashem gives us the commandments, that is a tremendous vote of confidence that there is something that we can do on behalf of God to bring greater goodness to the world. And having that responsibility is a tremendous honor, a privilege, and it gives a person a greater sense of self and a great sense of fulfillment. It's like, when you think about it, why would anybody want to be the president of the United States? I mean, there's such huge responsibility. But that's exactly what comes with greatness. What comes with greatness is responsibility. And so that's one thing that we are celebrating, is that we have rules in our lives. We have responsibilities. And God, the creator of the world, is counting on us to be partners. By the way, it is called a command, not a demand, which is very different. A command kind of suggests, hey, let's do this together. And, especially in the Israeli army, there's an attitude that the commander, he doesn't send his troops in and stays behind. He is at the front of his troops. That's a true commander. And so too, according to Torah, that when we live the commandments, it's as if God lives them with us, shares them with us, and together we're going to do the work to complete the universe and bring greater good.
Wow. I have so many thoughts going through my mind as you're sharing what you're sharing, because it's so life altering, because it's a perspective that when you first asked the question, why are we celebrating having so many commandments and so many rules and restrictions? And I think there's a part of me that resonated with that question, as I'm sure many people can resonate with that question, because there's this feeling of, right, why would I want to be so restricted and have so many rules that dictate my life? On the other hand, as you're explaining why we're celebrating having rules and restrictions, and how much more elevated and meaningful and purposeful, and that the rules themselves give purpose and meaning to our lives, just as the analogy was great. A game is defined by its rules and its restrictions. Otherwise, there's no game if we're breaking all the rules. It's just a totally different perspective about how to realize that, yes, we do celebrate those rules. What's interesting, though, I feel like each game is defined by rules, and certain rules. And if you change the rules, it's a different game. So the rules that the Torah brings down specifically, were there rules already in existence? There was some level of morality, I would imagine, that already existed in the world, of some level of rules, but this really upped the level of the rules of the game, so to speak, specifically for the Jewish nation, but also it affected the whole world.
Well, yes, the oral tradition has an interesting way to describe that God created the world by looking in the Torah. That means that the Torah is not only the blueprint of our personal lives ethically, but rather it is the blueprint of the universe. And I think very often people think ethics basically means the rules of being a nice guy. But actually, in our tradition, the rules of the Torah is just as set in the universe as the physical laws. There are physical laws, and one who tries to break those physical laws only breaks themselves against those physical laws. And so too, there are other laws that are not just physical, but we could call them spiritual laws. And when a person aligns themselves, I mean, what is the point of science? Science is trying to understand the operating system that guides the universe. And how that helps us is that once we know the principles that govern the movement of the universe, we won't go against them. We won't conflict with them. We'll go with that flow. And that's the advantage. Once we understand the workings of our body, then we can better understand what kind of foods would be best, suited to our bodies and what is not going to work. So too, the Torah didn't come to burden our lives, just like science isn't trying to burden our lives, but rather it makes our lives, easier and more pleasant because I'm not going against the flow. And so too, the laws of the Torah are helping us, how we as souls can go with the flow of the direction of the universe, not only in terms of this physical direction, but its spiritual and ethical direction.
Well, then we can definitely understand the importance of receiving the laws of the Torah, and even more so than the physical side of things, because again, science to some degree we were given tools to figure out the physical world, but the spiritual side of things and understanding that flow really needs to come directly from God, so we have clarity on how to live our lives as effectively and elevated as we can. When we return, Soul Talk, Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel.
The Tamar Yona Show.
Tamar? She's sassy.
She's smart.
She's funny.
But she's also a real Jewish mother.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamar Yona. And yes, I can be all of those things. But at Israel News Talk Radio, I'm here to bring you the news stories and guests that you may not hear anywhere else. Join me live on air Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays for the most unique and bold talk radio in Israel.
The Tamar Yona Show.
Welcome back to Soul Talk. Leora Mandel with Rabbi David Aaron. Understanding in honor and the upcoming holiday of Shavuot, the significance of the Torah, specifically that the Torah is giving us opportunity for living our lives with more rules and regulations. And yet at the same time, Rabbi, as you explained, there is reason to celebrate living our lives with the rules of the Torah, because again, it's like if you have a game, to play that game effectively, you have to have the rules and restrictions or there is no game. Just like as you were explaining right before the break, in the world of science, we're here to understand the physical world that we live in so we can more live with the flow of the world in a physical sense. The Torah gives us these spiritual guidelines that's also a parallel reality that's going on here, and without that direction we will not be living our lives as effectively. Then that brings me to a question too, is why did it take so long for the Torah to be given? If these laws and rules and the tools that we receive with these laws and rules are so helpful for living the best life we can, why wasn't from the time man was created, why was he not given these rules to live by?
That's an excellent question, especially because the oral tradition says that when God created the world, he made a condition with the world that the world would continue to exist only if the Jewish people would accept the Torah at Sinai. If the Jewish people do not accept the Torah at Sinai, then the world would revert back to just chaos. And so that means that we accepting the Torah has some universal, not some, has a very direct, essential, universal impact on sustaining the universe. And so why did it take so long if the entire universe is, so to speak, waiting for the Jewish people to accept the Torah, because the future of the entire universe, not just mankind, the entire natural universe, is reliant on us keeping these laws, then why did it take so long? Well, first of all, it didn't have to take so long, because the Zohar, which is the central body of the wisdom of Kabbalah, says that the Torah could have been given to the generation of the flood. And because they were not worthy and willing to accept it, or maybe let's say willing or worthy to accept it, so the Torah, which is analogous to water, rather than coming down as refreshing water and sustaining water, it came down as a flood. That's what the Zohar says. It also says that when a baby is in their mother's womb, they're taught the entire Torah. And then when the baby leaves the womb, an angel touches the baby under their nose, that little cleft between the, at the top of their mouth. And that was a fingerprint of an angel. Again, what this all means, I don't know. We take it metaphorically, although we do take it seriously in terms of the deeper teachings there. But whatever, is the Torah is taught to every child while in their mother's womb, and then it's forgotten. So it's important to understand that the Torah is already imprinted in our being. It is already being encoded in the unconscious. And the question is, when will we be ready to really be conscious of that and live that? So again, let's go back to the same question though. So first of all, I'm just pointing out that the Torah is being given much earlier than at Sinai. You could say that the Sinai was really when the Jewish people were ready to receive it. That God was ready to give it long time ago, but was the world, and specifically it's our responsibility as the Jewish people to receive it, what's taking so long to receive it?
What was necessary for us to receive it?
What was necessary for us to receive it? Well, it says right before we got the Torah, it says that the nation encamped by the mountain, and suddenly the terminology is in single form, not that they encamped, but it describes them as not a them, but as a he. And so the commentary says, Rashi, that ish echad belev echad, that at Sinai, they were like one person with one heart. In other words, to be able to really be receptive, you could say that the God cast of Torah was there all along. The question is, when were we really, really receptive to it? It's like music. Music is playing. What do we need to do to turn on and tune in to really receive it? And we needed to be really, really ready to receive it. And one of the conditions to receive it is that we are one, that we are a united community with a united cause. Another condition to receiving it is humbleness, tremendous humbleness. But another reason is a deep, deep appreciation how much I need this. And let me just kind of explain that. I met a number of years ago a very successful businessman. He was single, and he lived a very carefree life. He was bragging to me how he doesn't have to get up any time in the morning. His work is so on automatic that he's making money, while he's sleeping, and that he really doesn't have to do anything. And he's not married, so he doesn't have to answer to anybody. And being that he's wealthy, he doesn't have to clean up his home. Someone comes and does that. He doesn't have to cook because he gets that ordered in. He described a life where he doesn't have to do anything. And here he is bragging, and yet he was an incredibly miserable person. He was miserable. And one of the reasons I know he's miserable is because if he was so happy, why is he spending time talking to a rabbi? Go be happy. But he was miserable because one of the ingredients to misery is having nothing you have to do. There's just nothing I have to do. So nobody's counting on me. Nobody needs me. Nobody's worrying about me. Nobody's relying on me. So then I'm not useful. Nobody needs me because I don't have anything to do. There's nothing in the world that really, really needs me. I think that would be devastating to wake up in the morning and feel, okay, once in a while it's a nice little vacation, but if that was your lifestyle, there's nothing I have to do. And this is the interesting point. To be able to receive Torah, you have to get to a place of such maturity that you want someone to tell you what you have to do. And you're excited about that. You see that as a tremendous gift, that there's something that I have to do. And so we really need to be ready to receive that. And I remember hearing this teaching from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. He was invited to a campus to speak, and he had never prepared classes. He was such an overflowing wellspring of Torah knowledge that he would just show up to wherever he was invited and ask them what the topic is, and he would download. So he got to the campus not knowing what the topic was, and when he got there, he asked. They said, well, actually, it's a debate. And he was shocked. He didn't realize he had agreed to a debate. It was very much not his thing. And he said, a debate? But with who? About what? They said, well, we have a conservative rabbi coming, a reform rabbi coming, and Reconstructionist rabbi coming, and you're the Orthodox rabbi. And this was like so not his style to debate. And he said, well, what are we debating about? And he said, he was told, we're debating whether the Torah is from God, whether the revelation at Sinai actually happened. Again, so much not the kind of topic that was his genre. All right, but he was stuck. Well, so when he got up, this is what he said. He said, holy friends, before I could address the question of whether God gave the Torah at Sinai, I think we first have to address and discuss whether we think we need a Torah from Sinai. Because if we think we don't need one, it really doesn't matter if it was given by God or not. And if we do think we need one, I think we'll be a lot more open and more interested in finding where that Torah could possibly be. But we have to start off with knowing that I need guidance. And he's continued that we are the only creatures in the world who don't know what we have to do. Animals know what they have to do. Bees are bees, and they don't know how to be a fake. Dogs, they know they're a dog. They don't think they're cats. They know what to do. Beavers, they develop, they have beaver huts. They never took any classes in architecture. And bees have a very advanced political structure, and none of them have their PhDs in political science. We're the only creatures that need help. We need guidance. We need someone to help us know what we have to do. And that could take a very long time for the world to be ready, to really, really be ready and say, you know what? I really need the creator of the world to tell me what I need to do because I haven't figured it out on my own.
And then that really comes to what you were saying is we have to have humility in order for us to be able to say, you know what, I can't figure this out on my own. And to a great extent, having the time to try to figure it out on our own and then realize we can't, and then being more receptive to and appreciating and recognizing the gift of receiving the Torah. When we return, Soul Talk, Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel.
In a time where feelings have become fact, where rational thought and common sense has disappeared, one man stands above it all.
I'm Howie Sobiker, your political hitman.
Political Hitman airs every Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. North American time, 7 a.m. Israeli time, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson.
And me, William Hall,
on the science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Soul Talk. Leora Mandel with Rabbi David Aaron. Rabbi Aaron, after the first two segments, I can now honestly and really understand when I say that the Torah, we're celebrating with Shavuot, that the Torah is a gift. As much as it's giving us rules and guidelines on how to live our lives, those rules and guidelines are such a gift. But what you also, what I think was so helpful in the last segment, made us realize is that how often do we have gifts in our lives that we don't appreciate? It can seem like a burden. Who wants this gift? And you have that sometimes almost like analogous to people who were maybe born into a prince or a princess, born into aristocracy. And that does come with higher expectations of behavior and consideration for, the nation outside of yourself, etc. But at the same time, there's sometimes those who just say, but I don't want this gift. Who wants this responsibility? Who wants this privilege? And yet what you're making us realize here is that God's giving us the Torah. It really is a gift, but we have to open up our eyes to recognize the importance of this gift and the meaning. And to a great extent, one of the things I really realized is that as a nation, to some degree, and as the world itself, God understood we had to be ready to receive this gift. And sometimes you have to not have something to then appreciate when you really have it, when you're given it.
Right. Well, one of the things that we were given, that we Jewish people had a lot of training in, is we've given the path to freedom. And that sounds like a contradiction. I'm getting rules, and yet this is the path to freedom. But first, before I explain that, I want to first explain what it means that we know because for hundreds of years, we were slaves. We know what it means to be a slave. We know what it means to feel like our freedom has been confiscated from us. And since we are all created in the image of God, the essential godliness of the human being is the desire for freedom. The desire for freedom. Because God is the epitome of all freedom, unlimited, so to speak, can do what he wants. And so too, we want freedom. And if a person ever feels that their freedom is being in any way compromised, or worse, their freedom is being confiscated, they will fight you tooth and nail because it's about freedom. And I remember I met this fellow in Manhattan, a successful businessman, I was hoping to raise some funds from some of my causes. And he said to me, which was really apropos, he says, Rabbi, nobody wants money. That's a great line when you're trying to raise money. Nobody wants money. And I said, why do you say that? He said, nobody wants money. Everybody, what they want is freedom. The money is in their mind how to get the freedom. Because if I have the money, I could do what I want, where I want, with who I want. And so they think that money is the ticket to freedom. But it's not the money they want, it's the freedom. And what often happens is in their search for money, their commitment to make that money, they end up becoming slaves to their money and slaves to their company and lose what it was all about, which is the freedom. And that is so true, that we're all looking for freedom. The question is, what is the definition of freedom? See, most people think that freedom is to do what I feel like doing. I can do whatever I feel like doing. And you know what? Animals then have the same definition of freedom. They can do whatever they feel like doing. That's not the freedom of a human being. The freedom of the human being is I'm free to do what I don't feel like doing because it's right. You see, if I do what I feel like doing, then I'm actually not free, but I'm actually a slave to my feelings. My feelings are controlling me. But true freedom is I can do what I don't feel like doing because it's right. I can look my feelings in the face and say, I know what you're telling me to do, but it's wrong. And I will transcend my feelings and celebrate the power of being human. That's the freedom. So our sages tell us that there's two kinds of freedom from and freedom to. Freedom from is getting out of Egypt. I don't have to do what that Pharaoh told me to do. That's freedom from. But that's not freedom. That's just freedom from oppression. If I don't get to Sinai, then I have freedom from oppression, but I don't have freedom to expression, which is mean, okay, I know what I don't want to do. I don't want to do what this guy's telling me. But what really do I want? Who am I? Can someone give me a guide to being my full self, to living? Because that's what freedom is. I want to be free to be the real me. And so in order to get to that place, we needed many years of training where it is so deep in our psyche of the incredible value and the core ideal of living a life of freedom, true freedom, and bringing that freedom to mankind.
And it does make sense that knowing what true freedom is has to come from a higher source, the omnipotent God who created us. Because I think so often we get stuck in the times of where we live, and the definition of what freedom is changes over time, right? What was once considered enslavement, now society can convince you enough, you're a free person. On the other hand, oftentimes what seems free, as you're explaining, we can become so enslaved. We think money gives us freedom, but can also enslave us. You think you have a great job, you made it, but if that job is enslaving you with the hours and the demands and the stress, are you free, or are you now a slave to what you were striving to achieve? So having God as the omnipotent source to give us clarity for all time, not just for right now, what is true freedom, is really so important so that we can achieve that.
Precisely. Absolutely. And that's the gift, to know what to do, to know why I'm here, to be able to distinguish between my lower side, my animal side, and my higher side, my human side, and be able to say no to my animal instincts and yes to my higher human instincts.
That's very powerful, because again, I think it makes a lot of sense, but I think we have to think about it to realize that this is the true order of things. Because I think so often when you'd say who's free, it's sort of like the man who had no responsibilities. I can do whatever I want. I'm a yes man. I can say yes to, I have the money, I have the funds, I can eat what I want, do what I want, but then that's really ultimately the road to self-destruction and to misery, as you said. And we'd oftentimes think if you're, telling yourself no on a regular basis, are you a free person or a restricted person? You're restricting yourself, and yet it's almost a paradox that by restricting ourselves and knowing which areas we should be restricting ourselves, that's how we truly achieve freedom.
Right.
But again, we need to know how to do it and where to do it, and that is where the Torah comes and tells us where. Now, it's interesting, too, because the Torah, there's certain aspects of the Torah where, our minds can wrap ourselves around it, right? Why it's important to, not to be jealous of other people. That's the last of the 10 Commandments, not to desire what someone else has. Can see how that will definitely lead me to having a happier, more fulfilled life, focus on, what I have, respecting my parents, respecting God, the Shabbat, take that break during the week. Now, don't be, a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour day running the on the treadmill towards success. Recognize it all comes from God. There's things we can wrap our minds around, but then there's those mitzvot, those commandments, that it really is hard for us to fully understand. How does this work? How does this make me into a better person? How does this truly give me freedom? I'm doing it because God says it, but I don't fully understand what this is doing for me.
Well, in a relationship, there are things that your spouse will ask you to do that makes total sense. And then there's things that they will ask you to do that just you don't understand. Which of those requests demonstrates greater love for your spouse? The one that makes sense to you and you'll only do what they ask if it makes sense to you? Or you're willing to get beyond yourself, trust your spouse, and say, I don't understand it, doesn't make sense to me, but if this is what they're asking, I'm ready to do it. This is a tremendous opportunity for me to get beyond myself and demonstrate my connection with my spouse. So it's precisely in those laws that we don't understand where there's a tremendous amount of transcendence, where I get beyond this. God has to make sense to me. I mean, what kind of God do you believe in if everything he thinks and asks you has to make sense to you? I don't want a God like that. He's on such a low level, you know. If I go to a brain surgeon, and God forbid I would need brain surgery, and I would say to them, listen, I know what you're going to do. You've told me your procedures, but I want you to explain why you're doing it. And if he could explain to me, I have no background in neurology, why he's doing what he's doing, I'm really going to question how great this guy is if I could understand what he's doing, and I don't know anything about neurology. So I think it goes back to the humility side. Is it possible that there's a power greater than myself, that knows better than myself, and is on my side, on my team, and is asking me and guiding me in ways that are truly in my best interest? A lot of people think this is some kind of control thing, that God is doing this to control us. God doesn't need to ask us to do a mitzvah to control us. He could have created us like animals and control us like he controls animals. And so I think it starts with an attitude. The attitude is, A, am I willing to accept the possibility, a real serious possibility, that there is a creator who has designed this world with perfect design? And is it possible that there actually is guidance available to living the best life I can? And is it possible that I won't always understand that guidance? And I'm happy that I don't, because that means it's coming from a place that's much more brilliant than I am.
Wow, there's so many powerful ideas you're sharing here for making and recognizing the importance and significance and the celebration of the holiday of Shavuot, celebrating the Torah, celebrating the guidance, the rules that it gives us for living our lives, and celebrating the relationship that it offers us with God, the giver of the Torah. I want to thank you all for joining us. Soul Talk, Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
Howdy, this is Rita from League City, Texas, now living in Israel. And though my heart may have belonged to Texas, it now belongs to Israel and all the fantastic show hosts at Israel News Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Michael Solomon from Kiryat Arba, Israel. And why do I love listening to Israel News Talk Radio? Because I love listening to the interesting interviews they do and their news reporting that most other media sources don't cover.
Hey, this is Nicoleko from Malmö, Sweden. It gets pretty cold here in Sweden, so I love cuddling up with a warm cup of tea while I listen to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Frank Morris from Tennessee. Me and my dog Buster really love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.